Hi everyone, welcome to Lionheart Yoga. I'm Nadra and today's video is a downward facing dog tutorial. So go ahead and grab your mat. If you have a couple of blocks, that would be great, but not necessary. So go ahead and grab those items and let's do yoga. So today we are doing downward facing dog, also known as Adho Mukha Svanasana in Sanskrit. So the first thing I would like to do, so down dog, as it's also known, is probably one of the most done yoga poses, and people that have never done yoga before or just heard of yoga, that's the pose they usually think of when they think of yoga. So it's a pose that we do all the time in many different classes, and a lot of times we don't get a really good set up for it. Because it's done so often, I think sometimes a lot of teachers don't take the time to really get you into the pose in the proper alignment, and people just kind of wing through it as they do a yoga practice. So I thought it would be a good idea to do this so that you have an idea of the way it's supposed to feel in your body, because it can be really uncomfortable. It can be a very uncomfortable pose when you're not doing it properly, when you're new to yoga. It can be really challenging, but I want to set it up for you so that you know what it's supposed to feel like, and show you modifications if you can't get fully into the pose. So I want to start just by stretching the shoulders a little bit, because that is a big part of down dog, is opening up the shoulders. It is meant to lengthen the spine, among other things, but that's one of the main reasons we do downward facing dog, to help lengthen the spine. But a lot of people have really tight shoulders, so I think it's important to stretch them first. So if you want to just go ahead with me, come into table position, and then let's get onto our forearms, and then walk those forearms forward. So basically we're going to come into baby dolphin. Now if you have blocks, you can go deeper into this pose, but you don't need to do it with blocks, because if you have really tight shoulders, you'll probably be just fine with your elbows on the mat. But if you do want to go deeper, you just set those blocks shoulder distance apart, and then you put your elbows on them, or forearms to start. Then you can make your way onto your elbows, and then what you'll do is you'll clasp your fingers together, and you would do the exact same thing with your elbows on the ground if you're not using blocks. You want to keep your hips above your knees, and then we just let the upper body hang down. We let the forehead may, or the head may not touch the ground if you're on blocks, and that's totally fine. We just want to try to stretch through those shoulders, let them open up a little bit, and breathe. So it's just about letting go here, sinking the heart a little bit closer to the mat, and just feeling a nice sense of opening. We're not going to hold it too long. I just want to show you something that you can do before you practice doing your down dog. So let's just take one more full breath. Nice big inhale. Exhale all the breath. Good. And then slowly you can lift the head up, walk the knees in, and then just make your way back up. I'm going to put those blocks aside. Good, and now hopefully we feel a little bit more open through the shoulders if you want to kind of roll them out a little bit. Good. All right, so let's place our hands on the mat, shoulder distance apart. So we're going to start with shoulder distance apart, but some people may need to widen up their hands a little bit. Now, traditionally, down dog is not taught that way. You know, most of the time, teachers tell you to keep your hands directly in line with your shoulders. But, you know, we're all different. Everybody has different width shoulders, different shoulder issues. Some are tighter, some are not. And it just might feel better if you open your hands up a little bit wider. It creates more space for the shoulder. But we're going to start with shoulder distance apart. So go ahead and do that. And then you want your middle finger pointing directly up towards the mat. Okay, now you want to claw into your fingers, so you're keeping the hands active to protect your wrists, and you especially want to press down through the index finger knuckle, especially when you come up into the pose. So let's just get the hands set up for that, nice and wide. Press into the heel of your hands as well. Press down through that index finger knuckle, then curl your toes under. So this is basically from table position. Curl the toes under, and then we're just going to just gently lift the knees for a moment and hover. Just hover for a moment as we engage the core. Then take a big inhale, and then exhale. Go ahead and lift the knees higher and start to shift the weight back in towards the heels. Now start just by keeping the knees bent. Okay, you can kind of walk it out a little, pressing one foot towards the mat as you bend deeper into the other knee. Just kind of seeing what that feels like. Good. And then you want to keep the arms nice and straight. And then you want to bend the knees a lot. So I like to have people start off with this pose, especially if it's one that you're not used to, by bending the knees a lot, keeping the heels high, and focus on lifting your tailbone as you try to press your chest towards your thighs. So the important thing in down dog is that we're lengthening through the spine, and you try to kind of create that little cow shape, you know, that cat-cow pose, like that cow shape in the back, to keep that length in the spine. And then only from here, when your spine is nice and long and your biceps are basically in line with your ears, then you start to try to press the heels back and maybe straighten the legs a little bit more. Now, you may not be able to straighten your legs all the way, and you may not be able to bring your heels all the way to the mat, and that doesn't matter. That comes with time. What's most important is that you're lengthening through that spine and you're externally rotating the upper arm. So I'm just going to bring my knees back down for a minute. You really want to focus on that external rotation and imagine that your armpits are trying to face each other. So if you were to put your hands on the mat and then bend your elbows, so when you bend your elbows and draw them in towards each other, you're basically keeping that action. But then what happens is a lot of the times, I'll show you on this hand, is that this index finger knuckle comes up, and that's what you want to try to avoid. So you want to still press firmly down into that, but at the same time, roll the upper arm outward. So that's kind of tricky. It's about internally rotating the forearm and externally rotating the upper arm. Now, I'm throwing a lot at you here, but what's most important is that it's comfortable for you. So if you can kind of just take all the little elements, think about them for a moment, try it out, and then forget about it. And then just do what feels good, because there's a lot to think about. But lengthening the spine is one of the most important things. Straightening the legs and getting your heels to the ground is not. That will come with time. That will absolutely come with time. The more you do it, the more flexible you become. It's about lengthening the spine and opening up the shoulders. So I think you have your down dog now. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing I wanted to say was if it does feel like it's pinching in your shoulders and there's just not enough room, then you can open up those hands wider. And you can also pivot the hands out a little bit. That's going to create a lot more room for the shoulders. So if you tried it and it just doesn't feel good in your body and your shoulders, try it this way. And if that works for you, well, then you found your down dog. So anyway, if you have any questions, if something didn't feel right and I didn't give a proper modification for you, you can put that in the comments and then I will respond with something that could potentially help. But hopefully I've covered everything, and there's your down dog, and I can't wait to see you doing that in one of the other yoga videos that I'm doing, or just enjoy it through whatever other practice you may do. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, again, post them in the comments, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Namaste.